Welcome, everyone, to the ConTech Exec Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Zimmerman, and we've got another new guest today, Tom Deane from Project Mark. Tom, you know, I've watched watched a couple webinars with you on it, participated in those, and kind of we're talking about the CRMs of the world and all those kind of things. And I wanted, just sit down and rap with you about yours, Project Mark. I wanted to see, why in the hell would you even be in this crazy business? How'd you get here? Let's kind of just start there.
Yes, it is crazy, Robert. Great to be here. Yes, my name is Tom Deane. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Project Mark. I guess how I got here, spent 10 years in the industry prior to starting Project Mark. Grew up in a family that were all involved in construction. My grandfather had worked in New York in the 70s, classic sort of Irish immigrant story as a block layer. Came back home. My mother was born in the Bronx and I was raised in Dublin, Ireland. But always loved construction, studied construction economics and management in a place called Limerick, about 2 hours south of Dublin. And then, once we finished our college degree, it was sort of the height of the recession in Ireland. And I took a one-way ticket to Los Angeles. Never been to Santa Monica before. We just landed. And, I was always inspired to work in the industry in the United States and felt like, with the right work ethic, things will happen here. And, often that is always the case, especially for folks that I knew had came over or, previous family. Landed in LA 15 years ago, spent a couple of years with a general contractor, mostly on commercial tenant improvements. And then I moved back into more so what I had studied, moved into the owner's rep role and spent a lot of time in pre-construction cost and risk management. That took me up to San Francisco. Funnily enough, my college roommate was on a project up here. It was a 2 million square foot high-rise development. They invited us to bid, and my company wanted me to be involved in the team and the presentation. So, 7-8 years after graduating, you had your college roommate right in front of you, interviewing you for one of the largest projects in the United States at the time. So we worked in San Francisco, myself and my college roommate got together. We worked on that project for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden, the emergence of technology really came to light. The likes of PlanGrid and the building connecteds of the world were just game-changing technologies. And even the likes of Procore and some of these larger project management systems were truly only getting adoption about 7-8 years ago. So we started to look at what are workflows within construction organizations and architect engineering organizations that are critically important to the business. And we felt business development and marketing was a huge workflow, winning work. Ultimately, or at the very beginning, Robert, we started off with this sort of LinkedIn for construction concept. It was a project-based network, and we had a lot of folks high-fiving us, thinking we thought it was a great idea, but just bringing that idea to market and executing, scaling, it just wasn't the right time, and we didn't have enough capital at that point in time to bring that to light. So we started to really think about, and it wasn't a big enough problem, in all honesty. We started to think about other workflows that we had, seen pains in the past. And when we got down into the weeds and spoke with a lot of our early clients and sent out surveys, the CRM, we felt was a huge opportunity for us to kind of, stake our flag and stay close to our early clients and continue to leverage what we knew and alongside market feedback to bring in something that first and foremost is super simple, right? That's where the problem is with a lot of CRMs.
Let's get clear on that.
Yeah.
CRM, there's a lot of them out there, right? There's, the Salesforces of the world and all those different ones. Why is it different? And everybody knows construction is a little different animal. What separates, utilizing one of those? I know there's several folks out there trying to utilize those from what you're trying to do with Project.
That's a great question. We get this all the time, especially from the investment side of things. First and foremost, there's an entire data infrastructure that's relatable to construction, i.e. a pre-construction project infrastructure and a post-contract project infrastructure. So we track the project all the way from the early life cycle of the project to post-contract. So when the project is closed, that's when a lot of the information changes, and we want to absorb and collect that data in our CRM system to leverage for business development and marketing and communicate to software such as, the Vistas and the Procores and the Autodesks of the world. So the entire data structure requires so much time and investment to set it up for a construction specific workflow if you're knocking on the doors of Salesforce as an example. So a huge commitment up front to make it frame like construction, but post contract it's not even available in these software systems. Secondly, it's the intuitiveness. Everything is incredibly simple, and it's really built for the doer seller or the pre-con manager or senior PM on the move. That's usually where the lag of adoption is when folks fail with existing CRM systems. Marketing and BD are always going to be champions of a single source of truth, but the folks that are moving the needle and building relationships on a project level, which is critical for all things business development, just don't use the system. So we've completely changed that on its face. We've a lot of engagement. A lot of folks are moving into sort of unlimited contracts because it's built for folks like myself who, are usually on projects and then have this business development role. And then thirdly is the specific construction specific integrations, right? We're integrated with tech stack, building connected, the Procores, the Trimbles of the world. So it makes it very easy to migrate data back and forth.
So just so the folks out there understand what you're talking about, I guess a little bit, what kind of data are you talking about migrating back and forth from your CRM to your, building operations, project management software? What does that look like? I mean, what kind of information are you garnishing to, kind of help your system?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's largely project data, team data, and financial data, which is usually the project data as well. So a typical workflow, let's say, for example, we're capturing the lead of and the project opportunity in Project Mark. We're managing that opportunity through the pre-construction phases on Project Mark. Let's say the project is won. We can set up a sync then where a trigger would move to Procore or would move to the ERP system and set that project up automatically with all the project details that happen there. Or
that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
That happens a lot when you move, again, in current sales positions, you move from a sales agent and then into some sort of design, build, operations, or pre-construction mode where you've got a signed contract, and it feels like it's a lot of manual labor in between that point.
100%. And then that's when I alluded to the post-contract phase, then that's another key part of this. So let's say we win the project on Project Mark, it would move to other systems, but it would also move to what we coin as the data hub on Project Mark. So a project, a single source of truth with team member information, financial information. We want to pull that information back from Procore. We want to pull the information back from Vista because that information is going to change, right? Shovel hits the ground, project details change orders happen, values change. So we want to capture all that data in our CRM because the next time I'm knocking on the company's door and saying, okay, what did you do on that particular project? All that relevant information needs to be in your CRM to be able to frame a proposal or be able to speak to that project. Because it shouldn't be living in a 2 or 3 different systems if you're using it for business reporting.
Right. And you don't want to be, I don't think you want to be that sales rep, the person that's repping the company and not realize that there may have been some trip ups in the last job, and recognizing that for your client and saying, hey, by the way, yeah, I realize what happened here and here. I think we can avoid these by doing these certain things. Right.
It's data visibility across the organization is essentially, oftentimes when 50% of our clients are coming away from existing CRM, so they have some sort of data structure. The other 50% are coming from Excel, and they may have 4 or 5 different sheets. Marketing is in one place, and a lot of the information is still in people's heads. So if they walk out the door and get another job, then that data doesn't become visible, and we can't report on that data accurately for, a particular project pursuit as an example. So we're just making that data much more available and visible and just easy to enter. And there's a lot of cool things with technology now, of course, AI that will capture this data in different instances. So folks won't have to really lift a finger in making sure that the data is live and up to date, so folks can really report on it.
Right. So that's what you're calling your Bolt, your AI assistant is that kind of layer of the software that says, hey, by the way, you need a little help researching this and wanting to know what's where, I can help you out.
Yeah, ultimately that is the goal, where it's trained on your data to be able to provide insights on that data. We have that now where you're communicating into the system. So let's say, for example, you finished a game of golf, or you came out of a project meeting and you've heard some things about a particular opportunity, or you need to follow up with that client. You communicate in your phone, that information gets captured really, really seamlessly. Or we've another AI component in the email where I'll be able to capture email information and basically send it to the CRM. So we're looking at all these different points where we can capture that information, where it's a little bit more effort in getting that data into the CRM. If we can leverage technology to make that completely seamless, well, then all of a sudden data is live, it's visible. And then from a reporting perspective, one thing I haven't touched on is like all things revenue backlog and forecasting and cash flow. All these things become much more accurate and live for C-suite to view in the CRM system as well.
It's interesting, I think one of the biggest things, maybe even for like the mid-sized contractors, those types of folks who are really trying to grow in the market, one of the biggest things is, like lead generation. Does this, function in that realm as well, helping you out with true lead generation?
We don't right now, Robert. There's actually some cool solutions out there that we know well that we'll likely, partner with and integrate with at a point in time. Most of our clients, funny, when people think CRM, it's like, yes, it's partly to grow and win net new work, right? That's usually what people compare, why you'd need a CRM to, is like private equity buys you need to grow 2 or 3x over the course of the next year or two. But really, a large use case for us is sort of managing that inbound. Folks may not need to go and win new work. It's more so managing and qualifying all the projects that are coming in that are negotiated or repeat and things like that. So most of our clients haven't necessarily requested lead identification or generation right now. They're more so managing all the requests and the opportunities within their network on Project Mark. But we certainly see an opportunity downstream as we roll this out to more of the market.
So these folks are they coming to you saying, hey, I've got a huge backlog of work, but I'm having trouble managing? Is that kind of what that looks like?
It's more so managing and getting visibility on business development meets revenue backlog. If all of this information is managed on Excel or not updated in the CRM, how do we know what's happening that's around the corner in Q1 of next year, or if things change? So it's a place to manage all of the project and bid requests that typically come in, alongside leveraging relationships to build net new opportunities as well.
It's that's the thing about construction, is there's so many different sides to it, right? It's the full gamut of the business, and then it's so unique on each level. And I think what you're touching on here is kind of interesting, because when I look at construction, not every job is the same. They have similar parts, right? But there's so many different characteristics to them. And maybe it's just the characters that are involved in the thing, right? Again, everybody comes down to either we've got technology now trying to integrate itself so that it helps us, but then there's still that relationship portion that technology can't even touch. They can highlight, areas where the relationship needs to, be augmented or changed or figured out or something like that. But it can't do anything about creating that relationship, but it can take notes, I guess.
100%. You and I know, Robert, that the construction game is a people industry, right? And relationships are everything in construction. And if we're building a framework that allows to manage those relationships in a very easy way, that is truly the goal. We've one feature, what we feel is quite cool and gets a lot of response, is within the contact management structure. You can start to build relationship trees, right? Because that's key in construction. It's sort of who's in the circle of Robert's Zimmerman's general contractor who referred us into Robert. Who do we know is a strong partner from an architectural perspective of Robert? It's a whole strategy. Should say strategy. It's more so awareness of all the relationships that circle Robert for you to then leverage and work those relationships, and then continue to open up opportunities for yourself. So there's that mindset is really built into how we think about building our own system as folks go and go about business development in construction.
So kind of like a circle of influence layer here. Yeah, which is huge. And not only within a company, but there's also, especially in AEC, there's circle of influence outside of the company, like what you're talking about. Your
Exactly.
engineers that you're working with, your architects that you're working with, your consultancies that you may be working with have influence when it comes
Yeah.
down to this kind of thing.
Yep. Well, I always say the best tip in business development in construction is introducing your project partners to the people you like and trust. Like that, that always comes full circle. If you have strong relationships with your architects, engineers, that do a great job, and let's say one of your owners is familiar with that business, like them connections just they come around all the time, and you're continuously building that network of folks around the same sort of values and work ethic as you and your company.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I found most of my success as a general contractor back in the day was definitely developing great relationships with architects and engineers.
Yep.
Because architects and engineers get they get kind of the first call, especially if they're really good, right? They get first call from these clients who are out there saying, "Hey, by the way, I want to go build this thing," right? And their list of, if you get on their short list of, hey, folks, you may want to work with these guys. And it always comes down to kind of scale of the project, right? These big projects, these big capital projects, they're going to go with, somebody that can handle it. In a mid-sized market, you've got some opportunity in a mid-sized market to step into maybe a little bit bigger role, find a little bit bigger job, especially if you come to the table with the receipts.
100%. Yep.
Which is another thing that I was wanting to talk to you about on this, because I've often had the conversation lately about, with the digitization of data in the construction world. I don't know that it's too far away that you've got to be in this field. You've got to be digitizing your information in order to be able to come to the table with, again, receipts that say, hey, look what we do. And this is how we have a predictability module on this. And maybe this is where you're probably going to lose a little bit of money on this job, or this is where you're going to make your money on this job. These are all the things. These are the things we've already measured this. This is hey, look, this is our safety record. It's down to the minute of exactly what could go, what we do to eliminate risk, those types of things. And I think, again, it does start with, that's a big deal in the sales side of this world.
100%. You're spot on. Data-driven, you've no excuse to be a data-driven decision-making company with the technology and the AI that's out there today. But it's, and I recall one of your questions a couple of weeks ago on that webinar, Robert, the capturing of that data up front from a benchmarking perspective and conceptual estimating is massive to start the job off in the right fashion. But as you go through sort of the project life cycle, all that data capture is incredibly important to operate efficiently today. And yeah, there's so much technology that's out there that can streamline, but it goes back to making sure that your data is in the right place first and foremost. If your data isn't structured and it's not clean, you can't do anything with it.
Yeah. I talk to people about that a lot, getting your data in the right space, which is one part of it. The next part of it is the process and doing it, right? The processes that surround it, how you collect it. The big word is right, governance, right? Data governance, because I always look at it this way. If you've got 3 different teams that are speaking 3 different languages, and providing notes on those 3 different languages, they're not going to match up. Nobody's going to understand what everybody else is doing. And so that gets into this whole thing is like when we start to talk about digitizing information, I think we need to like look at our processes. All right. We have to standardize a little bit. And I know everybody wants to be different, I guess, somehow, but you can be different. But you still have to be a unit, right?
Yep.
And within that unit, you have to have common language. You have to have common data points. And then you have to, be able to translate that maybe to the client's vision as well. So again, that's the reason why we're sitting here kind of talking about this, because I think what happens on a lot of times when you start to talk to clients and you're starting to set expectations and you don't have necessarily a common language, you say one thing and the client maybe hears another. There again, if you don't have a point of reference, like a digital set of rules, a digital set of ideas that you've set forth and says, here's the proof of what we've done. Here's the definitions of those things that we've done, right? Are we all on the same page? That's where we have to start to kind of correct some of these issues.
Yeah. It to me, that starts at the very top, right? It starts with culture. It starts with core values. It's defining who you are as a company. You mentioned common language. What is our common language that we all align to at the core culture and value perspective, and then how do we roll that departmentally out with SOPs to ensure that everybody's on the same page? So that is absolutely key on the sales front, or even from an implementation perspective. We certainly support our companies in SOP framing to ensure that we're identifying the champions and the end users and what exactly they need to do at what point in time in the CRM system. So that has dramatically increased the adoption rates with some of these companies. We're actually heading to Pennsylvania next week to a general contractor that has been a client of ours for a year and a half. They're looking to roll this out to the entire company. So we're going to sit down with them and get into that sort of common framing on how to leverage and utilize the system. So yeah, it's absolutely crucial that everybody's on the same page. There's a structure there that everybody abides to, and nobody's sort of operating in their independent silos.
Yeah, I find that interesting. Even on the software side of the world, when you start talking about adding technology to a stack, or maybe adding something new to a stack that maybe they haven't had really in the past, you really are. It's another building project, right? Because you've got a lot of players involved. You got a lot of people that are going to have to, come into the kind of the new office area. They're going to have to learn, the new ropes and those kind of things. That process of change management is extremely scary to a client. And I want you to kind of address that, because again, it's the same thing if you get a change order in the field, right? It's suddenly dropped upon you. Oh, we need to do this. Well, how do we retool to make this happen? Who's going to have to be involved? Who do we put in front of this? Especially if it's like a hot ticket item where it's like, oh, hey, we really need to do this. This was, we didn't catch this. It's difficult.
Yeah, I think even taking a step back from making that change is defining the problem, right? There's a lot of companies that feel like they need software to solve their problem without actually identifying the problem in the first place to a level of depth that they know the software is going to come in and solve it.
Yeah.
So
what do you think? Yeah. Do you think that number, again, do you think that number is, kind of on an average, is that 30% of the companies out there, or is that 70% of the companies out there?
It's so hard, because construction is so fragmented. It's like it could be both. The crazy thing about construction is like you might have competitors that operate in the same, do very similar revenue, and their internal systems are completely different. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite unpredictable. But yeah, like it's very easy to get caught up in the noise of software and hear about AI and technology and think that that's going to solve your problem. And it's just like, well, you need to take a step back and truly define what the problem is you're trying to solve. And is it the software that's going to solve it, or is it personnel, or and then I think a clearly defined scope sets you up to now understand and ask the right questions as you're evaluating software systems. Yeah. We always say, you have 2 or 3 software systems you should be looking at, even if they're looking at ourselves, just to ensure that they're going to find the right partner. And the cream always rises in software. So
Well, I'm always one to say, and it's not. I mean, I'm in the context side of the world, so I get it. But I'm always one to say, I really doubt that it's your software that's going to save you.
yeah, if that's if that's what you're looking for, yeah, I would totally agree.
Yeah, because ultimately it comes down to your people. It comes down to who's in charge of what, who's executing, and who's being held accountable.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. Yeah, I've been so bought in to all things culture and core values. What's going to save you is your culture and how you define your culture and how you get folks bought into the mission and the goals for the company. And it's essentially the people problem, right? Is aligning
Yeah.
and hiring the right people.
Yeah.
We a couple of years ago, if you had asked me about core values, I would have I was like, oh, that's cultish. Well, why do we need core values? And just going through the process, we actually implemented, I'm not sure if you're familiar with EOS, but a lot of construction companies bring in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm trained in EOS. I
No way.
know
Yeah.
it very, very well.
Awesome. Yeah. So that really defined, the meaning of what core values are supposed to mean for a company, for your company and the mission and goal, and to get everybody on the same page. So as I really started to buy in,
that system itself will definitely open your eyes to exactly what it means. But what's funny about that is, again, through that culture, they'll tell you, it's not the posters that you put on your wall. You can't just put, I want integrity and, honesty and those kind of, you can't just pick those bold face values out. You really got to dig deep, especially in the core instruction of that whole thing. You really got it. And I don't think that companies really realize that. That's when I start to say 70%, those kind of things. I think there's a lot of folks out there, especially in kind of that mid-market world, and maybe even some of the large market world that's just like, you can put those posters up on the wall and you can have your Friday pizza parties and you can do all that kind of crap. But I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know that your message, as they define it in EOS, is distributed to all and followed by all.
Yep, 100%. Right? I love the statement. Your culture is who you hire, who you fire, and who you promote. And everything around those should be defined by the values that you set. So everybody, the way we go through our own hiring process is all based on the things that we expect from a values perspective. Same thing with hiring, or same thing with letting folks go or promoting folks within the organization. So it goes so much more than pizza on a Friday. Totally agree.
Yeah, well, it always has, and that's the thing. So it always has. Because I grew up on the I'll say the muddy side of construction, right? I was out there. I was a carpenter's apprentice. Worked 10 years as a journeyman. I got to see a lot of the world from, it's a totally different perspective, and I don't even think you could mention culture. Back when I was working, and I'm not trying to, date myself or anything like that, but culture is like, look, I'm coming to work, I had an old guy that taught me, he goes, you work to play, you don't play to work. It doesn't work that way, right? Their ideas are different in the field. Their ideas are, hey man, I got a 9-to-5er here, and I need to do what I need to do. I need to know my skill, need to go do it, follow the instructions, make sure it's built right. There's some quality integrity inside of that, right? But after that, man, I'm out. I got beer to drink and fish to catch, those kind of things.
Love it. It just reminds me of back when I was 15, 16 years old. I worked on site as a laborer, and the pizza on the Friday was actually poker in the at lunchtime. And so everybody, that was sort of the camaraderie, and then everybody back and working hard. It's funny, Robert. I at one stage really wanted to go down the apprenticeship route and become a carpenter. And then it was more so then I wanted to get into the architecture, and I wasn't smart enough for architecture, so that I got the degree in construction economics management, but that was something that I was always really passionate about, was getting out and building.
Right. And I think that's what that shows. It's not about, you can be on multiple sides of this construction industry. I have been on multiple sides of this industry. I have been a laborer. I've been an apprentice. I've been a carpenter. I've been a business owner. I've been a project manager, general contractor. I've worked with specialty contractors. I've worked with engineers. I've worked on the engineering side of the world. Now I'm on the tech side of the world. I think that's the bonus of construction is you don't have to go down one path. Even if if right now you're an electrician or you're an electrician's apprentice, or if you're a plumber or if you're a carpenter, whatever you're doing, your path is not defined by specifically that skill. There is a lot of places to go. You can certainly move into with, the proper acumen, proper training, those kind of things. You can move into project management, project engineering. There's places to move within this industry that I don't think a lot of kids realize these days. I'm not,
Percent.
and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get off the whole, the kind of the idea of a good CRM that's dedicated to construction. But what I'm talking about is you're to this point exactly. You could go end up on the sales side of the world, in construction, and have this background and know what goes on. That's a relationship builder if I've ever seen one in my life. And it's the one thing that benefited me the most was that I've already been out there in the field. I know what these guys are thinking. I know what this job's doing. I can see that. And so then I was able to sit down with the engineers and architects and talk shop, right? And then those engineers and architects would then go, oh, hey, you need to talk to this guy over here because this is going to be a good project manager or a good project, a good GC for this project, right?
Percent. Some of the strongest business development executives, some of the strongest executives in these construction companies have started in the field or have had a significant amount of technical expertise that they have substance when they're communicating and they're trying to, build that relationship, or they have that relationship already established because of years of working together. We often see sort of that being a natural role for folks where they've spent a lot of time and in the weeds, and now they've moved into more of an executive role or business development role.
Yeah, I think your group that was built for builders or built by builders. This group that you guys are in, I think that's a fantastic place, and a fantastic organization, really, because I see it as a very good place for an educational, informational space.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like there's a sense of pride to it, Robert. Anybody that's worked in the industry, you know how hard you have to work, and it's very humbling, right? Especially as an apprentice or coming in young as a project engineer, things move fast. You can easily make mistakes. You feel like you need to know everything, coming in. So, when you spend a lot of years in construction, that sort of domain expertise and education you acquire by studying and going through sort of the technical realms. So, that's something that we never want to lose. We often I miss, some aspects of working on projects and things like that. So, the fact that we have a group of folks, and when you think about the biggest exits in construction or the most valuable software systems, they've all been built by folks that have spent time in the industry. And I think it's for us, it's not about, we know the answer to your problem because we've been there. It's more so we understand, we can relate to the problem and we can kind of communicate and pull information out of these conversations based on understanding the workflow, is really where the advantage is. It's not because we're in the industry, we know how to solve for it. It's more so sitting down and in fairness to, there's a lot of folks that are non-domain experts that have been quite good at just being a sponge, and there's also a lot of noise of folks that think they can solve for the broken industry, which is just complete, it's complete noise.
Bullshit. Yeah. No, let's just be honest. There's a lot of complete BS out there.
Yeah.
Who they're coming from. And I'm not blaming the tech side of the world for wanting to solve these problems. They do see areas where it is. But when you don't have any background knowledge on where these problems came from, right? Basically, what is the, I guess, institutional background for
Exactly.
why they're doing processes this way. I think this is the biggest problem with technology and construction. Construction has been doing things in a way that may seem a little shoot from the hip, right? Technology looks at problems and they have to put it in the framework of a rule set. Okay. So we've got a set of rules. But when you're playing the game of shoot from the hip versus playing the game of rule set, those two lines are never going to match up on any kind of graph whatsoever. Right. And that institutional knowledge needs to be there for the technology side so they understand, why they were doing it this way. Right. First of all. And then if there is any possibility that the technology can then improve upon that methodology, right? Where are the pitfalls going to be? What are you going to run into? Because I've been on several times looking at a problem going, because as in the technology area, I was kind of a solutions engineer, right? So as a solutions engineer, I'm saying, okay, well, got a workflow. Now, the reason why this is not working is because this workflow doesn't match the workflow that your technology is trying to do, right? You're trying to say that, they should do this time every day. Time tracking, for example, let's just put it that way. Time tracking, for example. Well, what they need to do is, hear the technology person say what they need to do is they need to track it every day at this time. And so that way it's done. And then, they don't have to worry about it. And that's a great cheerleader statement. I love it. That's great. Yes, it's a good way to organize your day, but they've never been punched in the nose when it's 5 o'clock and, the plumber just busted the main line, over there, and you've got water all over the floor and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I fix this problem? We got to fix this problem now. And you forget all about the fact that you were supposed to put in your time at certain whatever, and you need to get your time card in and those kind of things. They're not there in the moment. And that may be an edge case area. But again, that happens a lot in the industry. There's a lot of punches in the nose that you take when you're out there in the field, right?
Yeah. I think the goal with us from a software perspective is pulling out them variables and them scenarios to be able to address technology to solve for those scenarios, not try to force, your software down and force a workflow down. That's just not going to work. If you think about construction, right? Construction is an incredibly high risk business, and it's in full of incredibly smart, dynamic people. So going back to my comment about software and the cream rises, the cream will rise. There's smart folks out there when they evaluate software systems. They need to prove that this is going to bring in an ROI, because the risk of that project is on their shoulders, right? So that's why, and a part of it is where there's that sort of laggard or slower go to market and slower buy-in, because it's such a high risk business. So the way we approach things at Project Mark is trust in brand, trust in our service. Move at the pace the construction industry is allowing us to move. But, over time, we feel like there's going to be a really big inflection point because of the product and service that we offer. And we're not trying to force things down or trying to move too quickly, because it's the understanding, like, you need to deliver ROI. That's the bottom line. And you be picked apart. Yeah.
And an ROI, I mean, let's just be honest. Return on investment comes incrementally.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've never heard, you always hear that funny, there's the like if you're a Nashville songwriter or whatever, they say it's a 10-year town kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're a country star and you're overnight,
overnight
success. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in any kind of business that you run, in construction especially. You're only going to start seeing gains over incremental portions of time. And you got to kind of celebrate those wins for sure, but you have to be able to recognize them, which is why I think the digitization of what we're trying to do, trying to get these things so we've got some evidence that we're making progress. Because I think for so long we've been in this world of, spreadsheets and siloed information that you got one guy over here going, well, yeah, it looks like we're doing pretty good, checking the wind.
Yep.
kind of thing, and reading the tea leaves a little bit, but it's got no data to back it up. Either that or it's siloed or fractured or whatever. I think with the unification of these kind of things, bringing it into, again, a source of truth so that you can actually extract real information that's validated, has some governance to it. Then you've got something real. You've got something tangible to say, hey, look, we did 1% better here, or we did 2% better here. That's what we're looking for, right? I'm not looking for 30% better overnight. That would scare the hell out of me. That would be like, what have we been doing if I saw that? We've really been screwing up, right? But on 1%, 1%, 1%. And over the course of a year, over the course of 2 years, then that creates a confidence level, right? Creates a good foundation for moving forward, right?
Yeah.
So
Totally agree with you. I think ultimately the industry is progressing in the right way with technology. I do think AI has really helped accelerate that as well, because people kind of need to be privy on the technology that's out there and what can and can't be done over the course of the next year, or else you could be flattened, right? And I think, yeah, we're heading in the right direction. I see a place where 95% of mid to upper market contractors have full tech stacks going from A to Z in the project lifecycle, right? We're nowhere near that right now today, but I do think it's heading in the right direction. And a lot of the investment in ConTech and a lot what you're doing and these built by builder associations and making noise, it all helps with the progress and moving folks forward.
yeah.
But like you said, it's a sort of a 1% versus a 30%. Some companies are just slower to move, and that's okay. It's just a matter of going back to understanding their problem, making sure that they're picking a solution to solve for their problem, and then it's a night and day difference. If they select the right software for the right purpose.
Mm. I want to throw you a little curveball here, just to take a snapshot out of the headlines today. I don't know if you've been following it all. Did you see that AECOM, bought Consigli, Alice Technologies, and then Turner has jumped into a contract with ChatGPT. I'm just interested in your thoughts on, these are some big boys out there now that are, making some moves toward, everybody knows the AI train is coming. These are significant moves to jumping on that AI train and knowing that it's going to continue on. I'm interested in your thoughts on it.
It's a reflection of where the market's going, right? Like you said, the AI train is here and it's going. I'm sure they've done a lot of research on Consigli and obviously the connection or the ChatGPT and partnership there with Turner. What's really interesting is nobody really knows what sort of is coming next, other than a select few of people. So, in 6 or 12 or 18 months' time, is that what technology is going to be available for folks to leverage for free? So it's just a super interesting time. One of the things that I'm most fascinated about, Robert, is sort of the stock market. And when you think about a lot of folks are saying it's a bubble, which it certainly is, but like what is priced in? If you think about is the realized value of AI priced into the markets right now, i.e. AI completely taking over and streamlining everything and taking up a whole bunch of white collar jobs as an example. Or, when you think about the level of energy and infrastructure that is required for that price to realize, you're talking 10 or 15 years away. So does the market have that sort of patience? When you think about the last 15 years, how many things have happened, come out of a recession, COVID had happened. So that's the thing that I'm fascinated. I don't know the answer at all, but I'm always curious to see is the market's price in sort of fully realized value of AI today, with not knowing what it's going to take to actually have the infrastructure ready to leverage AI in the way that they're thinking.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I agree too. I find it fascinating. I wonder if it's a bit of a, there's there's smart people working at these companies that are, making these decisions, far smarter than me, and they've got more insight into the reasons why they've gone down these roads. And again, construction, the Turners of the world, AECOMs, these are risk management companies, period. Right. So they've obviously evaluated the risk and said, hey, you know what I mean? Even if this is an AI bubble, right? It's not like even the internet, the .com boom, right? Even that bubble. Guess what? There's still .coms around. There's still
progress. Yeah.
Let's be clear about this. And it may not be, man, I've read so many different, articles on this thing of how, ChatGPT will be the next, WeWork or whatever. And it's that same, they're sucking up all kinds of money and everybody's getting rich, but the product really is never going to last. Right. Well, maybe not, but how do you know? I would think that the Turners of the world, the AECOMs of the world have researched it, studied it enough and said, this is worth the risk. And there's an exit plan. But I find it fascinating as well to go, where's this thing going? And there's another part of me in the construction industry that says, we as humans really still need to be in front of it. And we need to set guardrails. We need to do things that augment our behaviors and our capacities. Yes, but we do not need, I don't think that we need some of these things to be taking the place of, like I say, the institutional knowledge, the tribal knowledge of these things, because I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just such an interesting time. It's obviously a huge price tag as well, right? So like you said, I think I'm sure they've done a lot of research, and especially, from a risk reduction perspective, you're spot on. These are risk management companies. It's just going to be really interesting to see sort of the evolution over the next 12 months and what comes out there. I do agree. I think there's really great areas for AI to come in. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and getting ahead of the pre-construction process, right, and reducing risk. If you think about what clients care about, they want their projects on budget and on schedule. And how can we learn from all the projects that we've done in the past to reduce as much risk as possible at the earliest stages, right? That is an absolute given. But it's super exciting. You see takeoff AI, you see estimating AI tools. We see obviously huge opportunity with our own AI tooling and insights, and really enabling smarter decision making by the top C-suite of every organization. We feel some of the presidents and CEOs of our companies, they have 3 software systems on their browser, one of them being ProjectMark. We feel like we're that important to business decision making and sort of growth curves for construction companies. So that's ultimately where we want to be and go. But it's interesting times. I'm not sure if you listened to the All In podcast, but I thought they framed it quite well a couple of weeks ago. It's just like, speculation is the foundation of progress. So yes, there's inflation. Yes, there's like a lot of noise around AI, but like that's ultimately, the foundation of a lot of competition and ultimately a lot of progress, to your point around .com still being around.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Nobody's going to go anywhere without taking some risks, right? And we've got to. And best way to take risks, I think, is to have the data to kind of back up why you're taking it, right? Same thing with the CRM and ProjectMark, right? It gives those executives a little bit of insight into, hey, why am I taking this risk?
Yeah. Why am I spending 3 weeks estimating this project for this owner that we never win work from, only out on occasion? Why are we investing the time and money where we could be, leveraging or optimizing for another relationship, another project where our win rates are high? Like, these are simple things that become more visible with the right system of record.
Yeah. Well, I do love the idea of like getting rid of the tire kickers, the guys that waste your time, when they're not honest with you and tell you, I really just need another bid. I've already got my guy selected. Those kind of, there's nothing more frustrating than that. I get you. Well, Well, listen, time flies, like I said, but it's been great talking to you. Yeah. I always ask this at the end, and just so folks that are listening or watching on YouTube, how do they get a hold of Tom Deane, or how do they get a hold of Project Mark? Best places to find you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Rob. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you're more than welcome to connect with me and shoot me a DM. Check out our website, projectmark.com. We've a demo video there you can check out, or request a demo. You can fill out a form, and we'll get one of our folks or myself hopping on with you. But yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm excited to chat more.
All right. Well, everybody, there you have it from Tom Deane. And I would recommend it. You guys got to look at your CRM. You got to look at your sales processes, because I think Tom's right on the mark when it says probably one of the most critical processes. And you already know it. It's one of the most critical processes that you have got. You've really got to start to figure out how to get it digitized, so you've got those receipts. But that's really all the time we've got today. I just want everybody to know, kind of toward the end of the year here, I'm going to be kind of coming up with a best of, and I'm sure there's going to be some segments of this one, Tom, that are going to be in my best of series, the end of the year recap. So that'll be kind of fun. But until then, everybody, stay safe out there, keep building, and we'll see you next time.